Hey guys, Danny Brown here with Danny Brown Talks Phoenix. In this episode, we talk about our market update for the beginning of the year and our bold predictions for 2020. So let's dive into it. Last month, we had 12,141 active listings on the market, or actually right now we have 12,141 active listings on the market. This time last year, we had 17,339 homes on the market.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, right? So we are down 30% for active listings in a year.
Do you think that's going to change now that we're hitting buying season? I know we just got out of the holidays. I feel like, Monday this week was when everybody kind of got back into work, when kids went back to school and things like that. So I feel like now is when people have been waiting for to actually list their home.
So I can speak for us specifically that we have a pipeline of about 10 properties. They're in various stages of being listed. We've already had several people reach out to us and want to list really quickly. Mm-hmm. So if we're at that stage, I have to imagine that there's other real estate teams, other real estate groups out there who are in the same position. Mm-hmm. And so, I've talked on many a podcast that the Phoenix real estate market is super predictable in that, January through June is really that big selling season. And so a lot of people may have been withholding listing their property during that Thanksgiving through New Year's time and start listing in kind of that January and February. I can say from our perspective that the spring selling season has already started. We are super, super busy on the buyer side of things. So there's a lot of buyer activity out there. And if you are a seller with only 12,000 and change properties listed for sale, the market is super competitive, and it's a good time to get your property listed because you're probably going to end up with potentially multiple offers, slightly higher sales price, and better overall terms. And this is specifically true in the sub 400,000 market. Once you kind of get into that semi-luxury and luxury market, things shift a little bit because there's more inventory. But still, this is the lowest inventory that we've had since 2005.
Wow. And
our population is up over 20% since 2005. So, demand isn't any higher than what we normally see, but supply is just super, super low. So with that, I think that we are going to see upward pressure on pricing. We're already starting to see list prices inch their way up, and once list prices start to go up, what tends to follow are higher sales prices. Mm-hmm. And so I think as we get further into the spring season that we are definitely going to see much higher prices.
Okay.
Yeah. So monthly sales are up 20% though from this time last year and up 9% from a month ago. So we're still having, high sales volume, which is great. And that just kind of shows that we didn't really see any dip in market activity in 2019 like we normally do. Buyers just continued to buy property through month over month, regardless of what was taking place, anywhere. They just continued to buy homes. And I think that's because that spring season just got drawn out for basically the whole year.
Well, you had a lack of inventory the entire year. And so I feel like you had a lot of people that weren't finding what they wanted, getting into what they wanted. And so that extended the amount of time that they were looking. And so that just carried into the end of the year and through the holidays and went from there. So.
And that's absolutely true. And I think that that's going to continue into 2020. We're doing our bold predictions. One of my bold predictions is that the number of overall sales in the greater Phoenix area actually goes down, but the average sales price goes up substantially because there's just not enough homes out there for people to buy.
Yeah.
So year over year, we saw average price per square foot is up almost 9%. So that's great. And the average price point is up 11%. Yeah. Wow. So we're at the average sales price for last month was $289,500 versus $260,500 last year.
I was going to say, yeah. I mean, I remember talking about this and it being in the 260s, when we started the year. That's absolutely insane.
I know it's bonkers. But the Phoenix market is the most desirable market in the country right now. Yeah, and when it comes to real estate. So, we're seeing demand is outpacing supply, and, what buyers need to be prepared for if, I don't want to discourage them. There's still homes out there to purchase. There's still good deals to be had, and it's just going to take perseverance. you're going to have to continue to look for homes and not get too discouraged if you get beat out. I think that we're going to see an increase in multiple offers on properties, and don't be afraid to pay full list price or even slightly above list price within reason. And something that we're doing to protect our buyers, and as one of our preferred lenders, you've probably seen an increase in this,
Yes.
is we're flipping the appraisal process and the inspection period. So if we're working to get one of our clients under contract on a home and we're fearful that it won't appraise for the purchase price, we want to do that first rather than start the inspection process first. So in a normal transaction, you go under contract and you've got 10 days to do your inspections. You spend, anywhere from $400 to, $600 or $700, depending on the number of inspections that you do. Once you get through that, that's typically when you order the appraisal,
Yep.
which is going to cost you another $500. What we don't want to do is have you spend $500 to $700, then another $500 just to find out that you're not going to get the house or the seller won't reduce to the appraised value. So what we have started doing in these situations where we're fearful is flipping them and saying, okay, well, we want to order the appraisal right away. And sometimes we even put
the seller to pay
we
for
want
it.
the seller to pay for it, and the buyer will reimburse the seller at closing. So we're trying to protect our clients' funds. And if we get through the appraisal process, then the inspection period starts. So you're just flipping them. You're doing all the same due diligence, but you're not coming out of pocket and potentially losing, $1,000 to $1,500. So if buyers who are out there, if you're working with an agent and you get into a multiple offer situation, try and do that because I think it just protects you.
100%. I've got 2 clients in process right now. One being yours that we've done that with, and so far it's all worked out. Because as home values, the comps are starting to support these higher values, and so and appraisers aren't like they were a few years ago where they were ultra conservative. Some of them are giving us the value that we need, or a lot of them are giving us the value we need to make this work, and getting that appraisal out of the way up front just kind of confirms that. And remember, for every $1,000 that you finance, it only impacts your payment by about $5 per month. Actually,
Right.
a little bit less than that with where rates are at. So, if you're paying, $5,000 over what you were hoping to pay for a house, it's the difference of $25 to $30 a month. If you love this house, it's who cares?
Right.
It's a small price to pay. Cut a Starbucks out of your life every week, and you're going to get that money back. It's not we're not going to see home values dip. Maybe at some point down the road they'll level off, but this isn't lost money. You're not overpaying for this property. So
I think that's absolutely true. We just recently got a buyer under contract, and they had to come in $2,000 above the list price, and we think it's worth it. We advised our client that it was, and we told them that exact same thing, that you're not even going to notice the difference. Yes, it's $2,000, and that sounds like a lot. Just $2,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But once you amortize that over the life of the loan, you're not going to notice.
Exactly.
And that means the difference of you moving into the house versus not moving into the
Exactly.
house. Yep. So have you noticed anything in the financial lending world recently over the last month?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. There's a lot of things that impact mortgage rates that don't directly impact them. But recently we just had all these issues with Iran, that came up, and so there was all this unrest in the world. And anytime that things seem scary in the world, it tends to reduce interest rates. People pull their money out of stocks and all these things, they put them into mortgage bonds, and that reduces rates. So we saw this little drop, and I actually, when that happens, I tend to reach out to all my clients and say, hey, I can give you a better option at this point.
Yeah, you've got a small window.
You've got a small window, and in fact, we did. We had a couple of days, because shortly after that, the president, went on and talked and said, hey, I think we're going to settle these things. I think everything's calming down, and then rates kind of ticked up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what happened most recently with mortgage rates. But overall, they've stayed very, very low. The Fed met in December. They decided to keep rates where they were at, and I think
which everybody was expecting.
Everybody was expecting, and so they've stayed pretty flat for the last couple of months, but they're still in such a great place. It really gives people a lot of buying power. We're still in one of the lowest markets we've ever seen, and so you really have a lot a lot that you can do with your mortgage, and you don't. There's programs out there where people can put 3%, 3.5% down. They just increased loan limits
as of January 1. Loan
January
limits
1.
on FHA, conventional, no loan limits on VA, which
Yep.
is huge.
It's massive.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
especially especially in the Phoenix area where home values are going up so significantly, you need a little more flexibility with those conventional limits, because going over them, like with jumbo programs, you've typically got to put a little more down.
Yeah, they become more expensive.
They become more expensive,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's giving people a lot of options to buy, and a lot of power with the buying process. And
So while prices are going to be driven up, the fact that rates are being kept low is trying to help some of that.
It's balancing that out.
Hopefully somewhat affect that affordability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, we're not out of the woods completely. It's not all, rainbows and unicorns out there. I don't think the Iran situation is over at all. I think that that's something that is going to continue. And, we can touch on that in our bold predictions because there were some developments today with that. And the manufacturing sector for the United States it's at its deepest slump in more than a decade. And the sector has been under pressure for over 18 months. And, there's signs of relief. Trump has stated that on January 15th, he's meeting with representatives from China, and they're going to be signing that phase 1 deal. So I don't think that we'll necessarily see more tariffs, and it's going to reduce some of the existing tariffs that are out there now. So there will be some relief, hopefully, to the manufacturing sector. But that is the greatest thing that's holding our economy back, and what's propping it up is us, consumers. We're buying stuff still, and we feel good because unemployment's still low.
Record lows.
Yep. The wages are up wages are actually up higher for the bottom 25% of the market versus the top 25% of the market. So wages are increasing for the lower end of the labor pool, which is fantastic, and that hasn't happened in a long time. And also, this month, a lot of states and municipalities are passing increases in minimum wages. So more money for those people. So wages should continue to go up, which increases their buying power and puts more money in the economy. So, hopefully the consumer continues to be strong, and that should keep us out of a recession. But if, the manufacturing sector bleeds over into the consumer sector, then that could spell problems. So
we'll see.
Yeah,
will
time
see.
will tell.
Yes,
so
indeed.
That's kind of it for our market update. We're going to dive into our bold predictions. I hope that all of you had an awesome holiday season and a fantastic new year. Just to give you kind of a rundown of some of the bold predictions we did in 2019, I had predicted that property values would increase. And keep in mind, this time last year, the market was like really slowing down because
rates were
super high, like fives.
We're expected to continue to climb.
Yeah. So, hindsight being what it was, these don't sound like they're that crazy in terms of bold predictions, but at the time, I felt like they were.
They were.
Yeah,
sure.
I had predicted that property values would increase at 4% or more. I was right, but I did not estimate high enough.
Yeah.
Property values on average increased 8% across the greater Phoenix market. I had also predicted that there was going to be a lot of pressure in the market from the iBuyer sector. That's OfferPad, Opendoor, and Zillow. Whether I was right or not, I don't really know. They kind of leveled off. They've got 5% share of the market. I don't necessarily think that, and they've flattened out.
Okay.
We're not seeing an increase. Actually, we're seeing more increase in copycats. So there are there's a ton of different iBuyer programs that are out there.
Zillow's gotten into the market, and
I mean, the big three are Opendoor, OfferPad, and Zillow. But then there's so many more companies that are doing the same thing. I know of a lot of agents that are offering it as part of their, if you're willing to sell below market value with these fees, I'll buy your house, and turn around and sell it. So I'll be your iBuyer. So we're also playing with that in a way. And a lot of brokerages are starting to do some of the iBuyer programs, because if the market's willing to pay for the convenience of those things, why not? So I think that market will probably continue to kind of level off there, and it's just going to be more competitive. What else? I said more people are going to be relocating from Arizona to California in 2019, and that was absolutely true.
To Arizona from California, yeah.
What did I say?
I think you said from Arizona to California.
Yeah, flip that.
Yeah.
And we had over 75,000 people move to Arizona, Phoenix from California last year, and in 2017 the census said it was 60,000. So definitely up, and I think that trend will continue as California becomes more and more expensive.
Do you think that's part of the reason our home values are going up so much? Is we're bringing in a lot of folks from California that are used to paying these prices way up here, and for they come here, and even though home values are high or higher, it's still less than what they're used to paying. So they'll buy at a premium.
Maybe. I just think it comes down to supply and demand. Supply is low, demand is where it's at. It's where it's always been, and that's driving prices higher. I think millennials are aging up. They've been saving money for a long time, so your millennials are in prime buying. Their buying age, so their age is 30 to 40, and that's when people buy homes, is kind of in their first homes in that age range. And so I think that's ultimately what's driving it. Okay. And, boomers staying in their homes a lot longer. Yeah. Boomers aren't selling. And so that's kind of what's stalling the market. But Phoenix has always been a draw for other states. We've got a lot of people that relocate here from the Midwest, colder climates. And then, yes, an influx of people from California. But Californians aren't just moving to Arizona. They're also moving to Nevada and Colorado and
anything they can do to escape the fires, basically, and the house prices and the income
and the
tax and all
the bureaucry that goes along with being in California. So.
What else did we have here, Dave?
Yeah, I had some of the fun ones that all of the three major Arizona professional teams were going to finish in the bottom quarter of their leagues. I got 2 out of 3 right. Diamondbacks actually did fairly well. Yeah. Suns sucked, and Cardinals,
par for the course.
Yeah. Well, Arizona sports.
Arizona sports, exactly.
I had stated Game of Thrones had their big series finale, and I stated that Jon Snow was going to die. He did not.
Not.
Yep. So
survived.
He survived. I did not see that one coming.
I mean, he died once.
Yeah.
So we'll call it a 50-50.
You had suggested that I might get a new haircut, as you can see from that photo and me sitting right here.
Case.
Hopefully my hairline stayed in the same place and didn't go back any further, and the haircut is still the same.
It sure is. Well, it might just show up in my bold predictions for 2020. We'll see.
One of the big ones I had that I thought was hilarious was I suggested that somebody in our immediate friend group was going to end up pregnant. And
you were kind of wrong, because multiple people.
They all ended up pregnant except for me.
Yes.
And if I had video, I'd love to put it up, because you were adamant that you were not going to be one of those people who are pregnant. True. And I'd like to congratulate you.
Here I am.
Yeah. Well,
with child.
Your wife is pregnant.
Yes,
yep.
she is.
She is due in April.
Yep.
And we're
it's
super
terrifying
happy. Yeah.
And exciting all at once.
I cannot imagine. I think you're going to be an awesome dad, but
Thanks.
I also can't imagine it either.
Yeah, no, this is my life. We had our first baby class last night.
Oof.
And one of the things we were doing is doing the anatomy, of a woman when she's pregnant. And one of the things we had to put up there was rectum. And I said, rectum damn near killed him. And nobody laughed. I'm like, this is my life.
If I would have been there.
No, it was, that was my little story from baby class last night.
That's definitely a dad joke. Yeah. Those guys have to get used to it.
Well, I mean, nobody in that, they're all young kids.
Yeah.
And nobody's seen, Tommy Boy or whatever. Yeah, so it's, I don't know. Yeah. Well, anyway, onward.
And the other thing we predicted was that both JFQ and Myriad were going to have their best years ever, and we did.
We did.
Yeah. We were able to successfully help 90 families with their real estate needs and created over almost $30 million in value. So Myriad had its best year ever in 6 years. Yeah. And you going out.
I had just started, in February of last year, so it wasn't, but JFQ had been around, and we went from the main office went from 40 employees to about 300. We funded $2 billion last year, so we're actually the second largest FHA originator in the country, which was insane. And my business itself is this little tiny piece of it. But,
Sure.
I'm expecting hopefully 2020 will be my best year ever because I'll be able to compare it to 2019, and that'll be the only year I have. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my bold predictions
Yeah,
is
oh,
that both
look at that.
Myriad and JFQ 2020 is even better for them than 2019.
perfect.
Yeah.
Why don't we jump into the 2020?
We
bold
should,
predictions
absolutely. So, bold predictions. Why don't you go? I've been doing a ton of talking, so why don't
Okay.
you start with some of your bold predictions?
Should we start on the mortgage side?
Yeah, let's do it.
So I actually think that mortgage rates are going to hit an all-time low this year. We are, not far off of that. We hit one of the low points in history just a few months ago between August and October. I don't think the Iran thing is done.
Neither.
I think there's a lot that's still to come from that.
I mean, you told me, I haven't seen the news this morning, but they shot down a commercial airline.
Yeah. And so there's video of that. I mean, we're still kind of navigating all that. And, I think Canada's the big one. Is 65 Canadians were on that flight. And then, the rest were from Ukraine, I believe. But anyway, that's a big thing, you know. And so I think that's going to create, that's a starting point to a lot of things that are going to happen with Iran this year and the rest of the world, and that's going to create some unrest, and in turn, that's going to drive some rates down. On top of that,
markets hate, uncertainty.
Yes.
And when you have wars, if you look at history, war is not uncertainty.
Yeah.
What's uncertain is leading up to war, and actually, economies across the world have actually grown during wartime.
Yeah.
World War I, World War II, obviously the U.S. economies grew. European economies didn't because they were kind of in ruins.
Yeah.
But economies grow during wartime because that, at least, there's certainty associated with that. Leading up to it is uncertainty, and markets hate uncertainty.
Yep.
And when there's that uncertainty, we see rates go down.
Yep. I also think, another kind of bold prediction, I think this president more than likely is going to win a second term, and he's going to put
Agreed.
pressure on the Fed, to reduce interest rates and keep them low. So I think just a combination of all of those things is really going to keep rates in a good spot.
Well, I think the Fed's going to they're predicted to lower one time in this year, and they're talking about towards the end of the year. I actually think they're going to reduce at least twice because I think Trump is going to put pressure on them, and I think that there's a lot of still uncertainty in the world, and the economy is going to need it. And so I think they're going to still reduce rates twice, even though they don't want to.
Okay. What else on the mortgage side? I actually think foreclosure rates are going to continue to come down. One of the predictions we had last year was that millennials were going to drive the market. And I think that's true. As you said, they're in the buying age now. One thing with that generation is they grew up in the mortgage crash. They saw their parents lose their houses, and they saw, all of the crap that happened, in the early 2000s. Well, 2007 to 2013, let's call it. That gap of, home values going up and then crashing, and then, the fallout afterwards. And so, what I'm finding when I'm talking to this generation is they are all extremely conservative with their finances, and especially when buying a house. A few years ago, everybody I talked to wanted to be approved to the maximum amount they could qualify for, and they would go out and buy a house at that top price.
Sure.
And millennials are saying, well, instead of, getting approved for this is the monthly amount that I want to spend. It's well under what they can qualify for, and then they're looking for houses that fit within that monthly budget. So
I'm finding that too when we do our buyer consultations, and that's kind of how we start the conversation is what are you comfortable with paying on a monthly basis, not how much do you want to spend overall.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I feel like that generation is really just, they're not overextending themselves, and that in turn is, kept people from foreclosing. Granted, there's always going to be foreclosures out there, but I think that segment of the market's still going to shrink.
I agree with you. I think millennials are going to continue to drive the market even more so than they have. And one of my bold predictions is also that I think the next generation, Gen Z, whatever you want to call them, has double-digit growth in terms of them buying. So they've actually been the quickest buying segment of the market last year. So they're, they aren't a product of the Great Recession. They're a bit younger, and home ownership is a big driver for them, and a desire. So I think that market is going to continue to flourish and grow, and they're going to be buying at a younger age than millennials have been. And so I think that we'll see double-digit growth in that area of the market.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, what about on the real estate side? What do we got there?
So I'm predicting that we're going to see double-digit appreciation for home values. It's just based on supply and demand. So whether or not that's a bold prediction or not, I don't know. But we finished the last year at 8%. I think that we're going to see upwards of 10%, if not 11 or 12%.
I had that on my list as well.
Yeah,
I think so. I mean, and I think that's it's going to be there's going to be appreciation over the country, but I think that's specific to Phoenix.
Yes. These bold predictions, for the most part, are specific to Phoenix. I think the total number of sales for the greater Phoenix area actually goes down in 2020, but the average price point goes up. And I think, again, that just relates back to what we're seeing today of supply and demand. I think that the stock market, last year, the S&P 500, I think, is up 28%. I think this year it is closer to 10%. So I think that I think stocks and equities will continue to march forward as they have been, but I think it's going to be a much closer to that 10% range. I think the economy is going to continue to grow. I do not foresee us going into a recession in 2020, but I do think the economy is going to grow at less than 2% GDP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that typically signal a depression? I mean, if it's less than 2% for two consecutive quarters, isn't that what signals typically a recession? But in this case, I mean, it doesn't always lead to that. It's just one of the precursors.
Well, it's negative growth I thought it was negative growth for 2 consecutive quarters.
I guess that's true.
So
I just had the number 2 stuck in my head. So
yeah.
Disregard. All right. What else? What about iBuyers? I think iBuyers are going to make up a bigger percentage of the market. I know you mentioned they flattened.
I think they're going to continue to stay flat. I think you're going to see consolidation eventually. I don't know if 2020 is going to be the year of consolidation because we're seeing so many new entities enter the marketplace, if you will. I don't see them getting a greater market share right now.
You don't think with all the data they've collected that they're gonna get better at it and and grow that? I mean, I know that we talked about this last year or over the last few months a little bit that it seems like iBuyers are literally just buying properties and just doing all this stuff for the data they're collecting,
It's possible,
and they're selling properties at a loss in some cases just because just for the experience and so I think that I think that they're going to get better at it and get better and better, and so by the end of the year we might see an uptick in the percentage of market share that they have.
Agree to disagree.
All right,
we'll see who's right at the end of 2020 when we do
will.
this again. I think Maricopa County continues to be the fastest growing county in the country, and I think the fastest growing city in the country is going to be one of the cities out on the west side. So I think real estate is super local, and I think the West Valley in Phoenix is growing rapidly, and it's still super affordable. So while it's a seller's market for sub 400, there's a lot of choices for homes priced below 300, below 350 in areas like Surprise and Buckeye. The 202 expansion is pretty much done and open, I believe, and I think that's really going to open up that corridor. And so I think a lot of the growth that Maricopa County is going to see is going to be out on the west side, and I think one of the fastest growing cities in the country is going to be one of our West Valley municipalities.
Interesting.
Yeah. What else? I think wages are going to outgrow and outpace inflation. I think that's going to continue, which is going to be a good thing because that means we all have more spending power. And then this is a personal prediction that I know is going to be true, that Myriad Real Estate Group is going to be having a lot more events for our clients in our database. So we're very excited. We're going to be doing 3 or 4, I can't remember off the top of my head, but calling them Wine and Wisdom, and where we're going to invite our database to come to a venue. Right now we're partnering with Rotten Grapes.
Of course you are.
I love Rotten Grapes. I love Patty and Keith. They're fantastic, so we want to support them. But we're going to be bringing out a vendor, one of our B2C vendors, to come out and give a short talk, not just on their business, but how people can work the system to their advantage. So this first one, we're in tax season, unfortunately. And so in February, we're bringing out a CPA to Rotten Grapes, and they're going to give a discussion on things that you can do to leverage real estate to benefit your taxes, as well as just loopholes and things that you should pay attention to when filing your taxes so that you can save more money and get a higher return. So we're very excited about that. We've partnered with a financial advisor, an estate attorney. So that's something that we're going to be rolling out, and we're going to be providing free wine.
Everyone loves free wine.
Yeah, everybody loves free wine, so we're hoping to add some value there. And we're going to be doing also some happy hours spread out around the valley as well to try and just connect with our database. So
Cool.
Myriad Real Estate Group is going to be doing a lot more of those types of events throughout the year.
So not necessarily a bold prediction, just a fact.
A fact.
Okay. Great.
So what are some of your pop culture?
I'm not big on pop culture. I mean, I predicted this last year, and I think it was tough. We had a true freshman quarterback, so but I think ASU football is going to be a top 25 team this year.
Okay.
A lot of good recruiting class. So
and they finished it, right?
No, we didn't finish in the top 25. But we beat some top 25 teams.
Yes.
We beat Oregon at the end of the year, and so I think that we made it to a decent bowl game. And I think we're going to have a good year.
So you think ASU sports are going to have another be better than they were in 2019?
I think they're going to be better than they were in 2019.
I like it. I like it.
So
well, I predicted that the Cardinals and the Suns were going to suck it up last year. 2020, I think they're going to turn around. Okay. I think the Suns make the playoffs this year, and I think the Cardinals, who finished 5-10. I'm more of a pro sports guy. You're more of a college sports guy.
Yeah.
But I think the Cardinals, who finished 5-10 in 2019, finish with a winning record in 2020.
All right. Well,
I think.
Cross our fingers.
Yeah,
It'd
right.
be nice to have some good sports to watch around.
Yeah. I think we both agree that this is election season as well. That I think people vote with their pocketbooks, and with the economy doing pretty well, unemployment super low, wages are rising. I think Trump gets reelected.
Yep.
But
one thing and this is kind of a weird prediction, but I think Mayor Pete is going to win the Democratic nomination, which is kind of odd because he's super young.
Yeah.
He'd be the first openly gay president. If he was elected. And I think that he has had this like interesting climb from the bottom. And he's the thing he's got. Well, the thing he's got going for him is he's super moderate. Because a lot of the a lot of the pool, you've got your Elizabeth Warrens. And
what I like to say is he's kind of common sense.
Yeah, he is.
He's like middle of the road to where he could attract both Democrats and Republicans who are moderate and I think have more in common than don't.
Yep.
One of the things that I'm hoping for 2020 to go in line with this is I think 2020 is going to be a very tumultuous year. I think there's a lot of uncertainty out there, and I think it's going to continue. But what I would like to see is people be nicer to each other. I think that, there's a lot. I think social media thrives on hate and controversy, and that's how they get clicks. And I would love to see people not participate in that and not be in this outrage culture and realize that Democrats need Republicans and Republicans need Democrats. And what makes us a great society is all of our differing opinions, but our ability to talk to each other to figure out what the best idea is and to move forward. And being siloed, which social media has created, you get in these echo chambers where you're surrounded with people who have the exact same opinion you do, and I think that it hurts us as a whole. I have great friends who are huge supporters of Trump, and then I have great friends that think he's despicable. And it's fine. You can have conversations without hating somebody or thinking they're an idiot. And so I would really like to see in 2020 people kind of remember that we're all Americans and we're all in this fight together, and we all just want to better where we're at today and have a better life for ourselves and our kids. We may have differing opinions on how to get there, but through conversation and debate, we come up with the best ideas, and that's what has propelled us to where we're at. If you're, we talk about California having tons of problems. That's a super liberal state. Mm-hmm. And so being in a highly, highly liberal area isn't necessarily perfect. And the opposite is true. Somewhere in the middle is usually what's right. And so, I put it out there to everybody to just be nicer.
Oh, look at that. Danny Brown. What else you got? Anything, or should we leave it off there?
Well, one prediction I had last year that did not turn out was I thought Netflix would buy Spotify. But what has happened since then is I think we've got these huge streaming wars that are taking place.
Disney Plus.
There's Disney Plus, Apple's come out. We're in the era of content creation. And I think it's the golden age of TV, golden age of radio. I would have never been able to have a podcast. Like, this is a radio show.
Yeah.
I would never have been able to do that. And now anyone can create something. So we're in the golden age of content creation. And so I think the streaming wars are really going to heat up. I think that we're going to see consolidation. I think we're going to get back to bundling. A lot of people have cut the cord because they hate cable, and cable's super expensive. Well, it's super expensive to subscribe to all of these different services.
It's true.
So I think that you're going to start to see bundling come back. And I think you're going to see consolidation within the streaming companies. I think you'll see failures, and I think that you'll see some take just tons of market share. So it's definitely something, I don't know where the prediction is in there, but I think it's going to be really interesting to watch it evolve.
All right.
Yeah. You got anything else?
Just your new haircut for 2020, and that's it. Last bold prediction.
Yeah,
New
I don't see it happening.
Let's talk in 2021.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. This has been our December market update and our 2020 bold predictions. If you have any bold predictions, we'd love to hear from you, and we hope that you guys have a great start to your 2020.